Welcome to Constructive, a podcast about construction, technology, and whatever else comes up. Hope you enjoy. Thanks for coming back, everybody. This is Constructive. Today I've got Bisrat here from TruBuild, and we just got to know each other, but you're out in Saudi Arabia. It's more like the afternoon or evening there, right?
Yeah, just getting to evening time. But it's good weather, sun is shining.
Well, go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit. We've talked a little bit, but I'm excited to get to know you, and maybe you can start from the very beginning at first. Like, did you learn about construction at a young age? What kind of brought you to where you are now?
Sure. Well, firstly, thanks very much for having me on your show. I'm a big fan of what you do and your original reasons of getting into what you're doing. So yeah, happy to take part and yeah, help out in any way that we can. A bit about myself, CEO Co-Founder of TruBuild. At TruBuild, we aim to democratize access to AI for construction professionals, really by accelerating the ability to make decisions more quicker, more accurately for the people that need to make them. And as you're aware, in construction, we have to make decisions every day, regardless of which discipline or which team we sit in. So we really try to enable better decision making using AI for construction professionals. So TruBuild, we've been around for about just under a year now, but my background extensively has been in engineering consultancy and project management for the past 12 years or so. I started off my career in land and building surveying. So I'll be the guy that goes out and measures the property before any kind of construction starts, so that we can provide drawings and give the people a base to start off with in order to plan the design. But that kind of quickly moved into structural engineering. So my degree was in structural engineering management, and then I went into structural engineering. But as I was carrying out the role of a structural engineer, I'd spent months and months designing a single beam for a big rail project in the UK, and as much as I enjoyed that and as much as I respect that discipline, I really wanted to be involved in the overall project rather than a small part of the project. So after a couple of years in structural engineering, I moved into project management, so I can get a better understanding of how the overall project comes together, from the design to the commercial aspect, and also, of course, the clients and the stakeholders. And as I was in the role of project management, I soon realized the construction projects deal with information, whether it's structural engineering information or electrical information or commercial information. We all deal with information, and we all use different types of softwares in order to produce that information, analyze that information, and share and collaborate that information with other key stakeholders in the project. So that's how I kind of got introduced into the world of data and the digital side of construction. I think that's when I found my passion. I think that's when I found my passion and my true calling, because I could see things that others couldn't necessarily see, and I could really feel it. Even though it's a virtual thing, I could really feel it, and I could really understand and relate to the different teams that are producing it. So I moved from project management, I moved into project information management, working with the different teams to pull together plans and strategies in which everyone can work in their own systems and their own tools, but collectively, we are all building one construction project. We are not building 50 construction projects in one project. So I really focused on how each individual teams can do what they needed to do, but then how can we bring it together and collaborate, integrate it, and really bring it together to form one project so that we can best execute that construction project. And that introduced me to the world of building information modeling. So then I moved into kind of becoming the BIM manager on one of the largest construction projects at the time, based in Doha in Qatar, which is the Doha Metro Gold Line project, which I was the BIM manager for. And that was it's one of those kind of projects where it makes characters. It can either make you or break you. And unfortunately, from my side, I think it really established myself as it didn't break me, so it kind of made me into the person I am today. Simply because of, I think we were submitting around 100 to 200 drawings of designs a week to our contractor, because it was a design and build project. really, really aggressive construction delivery program. I think it was a two-year project to design and build a $4 billion metro system in Doha, and you couldn't be a weak team member in those kind of projects. Everyone has to be on the top of their game. So yeah, that was kind of moving to BIM, and then from BIM, then I started moving into more just general, not just the design aspect and how we coordinate design, how we coordinate engineering teams, but how we kind of manage the overall project. So I then started developing digital solutions for construction projects and construction teams, and that role really allowed me to find myself and really add as much value as I can to the industry. And here we are. Fast forward about 10 years later, we established TruBuild. And my purpose of really establishing TruBuild was, for me personally, the only thing I could do to give back and to show what I've learned in the industry was to create a platform and a software that capsulizes what I've learned in a solution that can give back to the industry to address some of the problems that we have in the construction industry. And that was the only way I could think of really bringing together my years of experience. So, yeah.
Man, that's beautiful. You mentioned so many things I want to dig deeper into. Hard for me to think of even where to start. But when we were talking on the phone, you mentioned I kind of shared some of my background, and I've shared some of it on this podcast before, but you were like, you need to tell your story more. And so you just brought up a bunch of things that I resonate so much with. We talked about it before, but one of the things specifically is this industry, to me, I haven't really been in other industries for long periods of time to know, but it feels like it does make or break you. It's one of those industries where it really has the potential to break people. And I don't know if that's unique to our industry of construction, but it feels kind of unique here. And I do think if you come out of that, you end up like one of the two of us, where you just feel like, I want to help. I want to solve problems. I want to make this job easier for the people in the future. If my kid goes into this industry, I want it to be like less stressful. And, we just had like some suicide prevention week even in this industry. And it's sad to me to think that that's even a thing we have to focus on. But there is the ability to break people in this industry. And that is part of what motivated me. Mainly, I never felt broken by the industry, but I just saw people around me breaking. And I also saw projects just breaking down into chaos a lot. I started my career in kind of the litigation niche and seeing a lot of projects that end up in the courtroom, basically. And it just gets really nasty at that point. And I'm glad to hear you're one of the people too that wasn't broken by the industry and turned around and said, let's see if we can make it better. And that's why I love bringing on companies like TruBuild, where you're just trying to make life a little easier for the people who actually are boots on the ground in construction projects, because that's really, I think, what makes, you mentioned too, teamwork. This industry is so teamwork is one of the biggest aspects of it. You can't do it as an individual. Obviously, if you think about it just logically, we can't build a huge building by ourselves. We have to have a lot of people. And that requires us all to work together and to find ways to help each other and not try to be a ball hog individual that's just like, I'm going to get it done my way or the highway. And so thanks for bringing that up. I'm passionate about it too. And I love hearing that you are. So tell me a little bit about that. Why is it partially the frustration in dealing with those things in project management that really motivated you? Like, I think a tech solution is needed, and there are some already, by the way. I know you know that, but we have tech solutions. And I think really the answer here is good tech, not just tech. We need to adopt tech that really helps and makes it simple. And I think it's a complex thing to make a simple solution. So yeah, tell me about, was it frustration that kind of motivated this, like, we need to do something?
Sure. Just with one of the points you mentioned, with the suicide prevention and mental health, I do. Um, yeah, it is a very sad. Realize it is a very sad point within our industry, and I've had construction projects where the people have worked themselves to getting a heart attack on the projects. It does feel overwhelming, and it does feel in some cases, and it's because people are so passionate about what they're doing, and they don't want to miss on the delivery and miss on the thing. So it's let alone with the suicide watch, there is the mental health and mental well-being, which hopefully, yeah, I think it is quite unique. So I don't really hear as much mental unwell-being in other industries than I do in that one. So, but it's it's a big point, that one. For me, I would say the frustration, but also we deal with we have lots of smart people in construction, whether it's the consultancy, the engineering, even the owners, once we bring in the contractors. And when we look at what we spend, how much time we spend, and where we spend that time on a day-to-day basis, it really makes you wonder of, do I really need to be doing all this time spending? It's not the best use of time, the time use where we spend most of our time at the moment, and then this adds to the frustration, and this limits the growth of our industry. I think because we don't have enough time to think about the future. We don't have enough time to think about how we can make it better, because we have too much process, we have too much stuff happening right now that requires our attention and our manual effort that really limits the progression of the industry. So when I look at the amount of stuff I've been doing, whether it's from the engineering or the project management, I would make a statement out there saying 50 to 60% of it was stuff that I wish I didn't have to do, but I had to do because of X, Y, Z reasons. And yeah, so I really want to be able to give back time to people to think about the future, how they can make it better. And then I think with technology, it's one way that what has happened in the industry, and I think you touched up on it briefly now. It's not just about tech coming in, and it is about good tech that can actually add value and integrates with existing workflows, and actually saves people time, rather than becoming a gimmick or becoming something that's just a nice to have, and we can make a post about it and, hey, we're doing X, Y, Z, and then we go back to the front line and delivering the project itself. So and I think where we are with, especially with AI and the relative intelligence of AI now, it starts to alleviate some of the mundane tasks that we find ourselves doing on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I think it's part frustration, part thinking, man, I should be doing something. We should be doing something more better with our time than what we're currently doing now. And also how technology has progressed, especially in the artificial space at the moment, artificial intelligence space, where it was evidential enough for me to make the leap to say, yeah, now is the right time for me to move into space. And I fully believe in the intelligence of technology right now, where it's not just a document management system, which is great, but it's actually stuff that can go inside of documents and go inside of data and be able to give us with actionable insights that would have taken me time to come up with. So I'll say a mix of all.
Yeah, that's great. And I think maybe this will get us a little bit into like the details of TruBuild, because I do want you to share like what it does. You mentioned kind of the problems it's trying to solve, you guys are trying to solve as a team. But I guess my question too kind of stems from, you mentioned a lot of it, the PM job. You've been a project manager. Really, I think the way we add value as project managers is a little bit we have to try to see into the future. And if we're too focused on the urgent things right in front of our face, which sometimes you cannot look away, you have to solve the urgent problem that's right in front of you. And if there's too many of those, you don't get a chance to analyze data. You don't get a chance to think about potential roadblocks that are coming up. Because I really do think our job is to keep the team moving and prevent a roadblock from bottlenecking everything and bringing the project to a halt. So sometimes it's just like, oh, this is going to stop us from work tomorrow. We got to do something right now to fix it. But if software can help us get to where we're able to think months ahead, I think that is a big part of the solution, and will bring the stress levels down for PMs when they're actually like, okay, we've solved all the problems that we're going to face this month, or there will still probably come up some new ones, but we can start thinking about next month and the month after that, and so forth. Is that part of what TruBuild is trying to do?
Yeah, but I'd even bring up even a higher level. I think
Yeah.
it's even before we've started construction, they're already broken. Because I've been involved in teams in the master planning stages and the planning stages, and I see the level of data and insight and the amount of thought that really goes into planning a project. And even before we've started construction, it's already an unattainable deadline, an unattainable plan. It's an unattainable thing. So the people that get handed over the responsibility of managing it once it starts construction, this it's like putting a rock up a mountain, or like a Mount Everest. You're trying to push up. It doesn't need to be like that. And I think we're in TruBuild, we do try to focus on them in the early stage of the construction project to facilitate the planning of it. It's just to show it's not realistic what you guys have got. So because I think the statistics that we read was like 98% of construction projects fail because of either over delay or over time, but it could be because the original time estimate was wrong. So you're measuring against something that wasn't correct in itself in the beginning, or the project budget was wrong in itself. So you're measuring against metrics that weren't right in the first place. So I think the whole, so as much as, but when the project starts, it's about firefighting, as you just said. There's firefighting every day, and you do feel like a fireman or a firewoman, and then
or an ER doctor. You know, we're triaging the one that's gonna die, the patient that's gonna die.
Yeah. What do you want to cut off first? Is it the leg? Is it the arm? Is it the thing? I think a lot of focus can be done in the planning stages and the way in which you even plan construction projects. There are some unreasonable expectations, but of course, the reason why we do kind of go forward is because people want to win projects. So no one wants to really say to the client, this is not achievable, because if you say that, you're out of the running. And the ones that do say yes, it's attainable. Although that drives innovation a bit, because then you're trying to really push yourselves and really find innovative ways of doing it. But what it actually means is people working on the project, they're going to have the worst couple of years of their life because they're working. But some cases that say yes, it's possible, it can drive innovation to work in a different, better way. But in most cases, it actually creates a project that everyone kind of hates. So before I kind of strive away a bit, it's a bit of the frustrations I've had, because I've seen project plans. It was like, I've seen the way this plan has been made, and it's literally some people saying, yes, we can do that. I was like, but did you actually speak to all of the stakeholders involved in delivering this? No, we haven't, but yet we can make an assumption saying this can be done in X, Y, Z time. So I think a lot of the effort could be done in the planning to facilitate better management, better project management, to at least make the metrics that we measure against more realistic, so that the targets become more realistic. But in TruBuild, we try to utilize AI in the upfront of the planning stages to go through contracts, to go through tender evaluations, to go through all of the documentation and data in the initial stages, to identify risks, identify gaps that could result in a dispute or a delay further downstream. And because I think that's the biggest influence that we have in a construction project is in the planning stages. Not once the project's already signed and you start to deliver something where you've got a monthly deliverable deadline, contractual commitments every single month that you have to hit. And if you don't hit, your neck is on the chopping block. So it's so I think a lot of focus should be on the planning stages to sense check it, shall we say?
Yeah. So you guys have been running the product for a little while now. Has it, like that period of time that you've had TruBuild in operation, has it narrowed your focus a little bit? Have you talk about what it's done in the past year and how it's kind of shaped where you think you're headed.
Sure. It has narrowed it. So initially we started off at the helping teams to better understand the construction contract before they've actually signed it. So kind of pre-contract phase. But our purpose of looking at the construction contract wasn't necessarily in the legal terminology in terms of thou shalt not do this and thou shalt not do that. It's more in making sure the documents attached to the contract in terms of the drawings, the schedules, the specifications, all of these pieces of information that's connected to the contract were actually connected, not just in a folder saying this is your drawings and this is your contract. So we really looked at see how we can identify gaps between what we're committing to in the contract and what was actually down in the design or the specifications, and identify areas where they weren't connected or where they were, where it could lead into a dispute. For example, in some of the drawings, it could be we're designing and building a 50-story skyscraper, but in part of the project management plan or the contract is saying 49-floor skyscraper. And if we don't address these type of issues before it goes to construction, it will lead into a variation with or a change with the contractor, which will lead into a dispute, which will lead into just the whole array of stuff that we should be able to avoid. So initially we were looking at that, but what is now kind of what that kind of has now evolved into is rather than just looking at the documents attached to it, but actually connecting to the systems that people use to produce that information, whether it's the design systems or the project management systems or the risk systems, and actually connecting to them and providing an AI layer, which allows people to speak to their data, but in a not in a siloed way, but saying in a multidimensional manner, shall we say. So we try to enhance and make it accessible, really.
I'm glad that you kind of chose the contract as a starting point and a focus point, because obviously everything kind of stems off that in a construction project. And you mentioned how important that is in the pre-construction phase. And I bet as a PM, like throughout the life of a project, I'm referencing the contract almost on a daily basis. It's still something I have to keep going back and rereading, and I'm preaching to the GC every time on a job. Did you read the contract? Can you go back and read it again? Do you know what it says? So, because that's how projects end up in litigation. If the contract's not being followed, here was my real question: is what ends a project in litigation tends to be we didn't really read the contract, but also the contract is flawed. It's contradictory. Specs don't always line up with other documents. You know how that goes. Is that a problem that it could also TruBuild help us identify those things in the contract before we sign it?
Yeah. So we did a survey actually in the early days. It's a confidential survey, and the survey was 2 people in confidence. How many of you have actually read the construction contract that you guys are working on? How many of you have actually read the contract that there might be a project manager working on the project, there might be an engineer, and it was 80% of people haven't read the actual contract that they're working on. So people work based on assuming this is what it is, or they just, there's lots of assumptions that people bring into a construction project thinking this is what, and someone always assumes someone else has read it, and that's why it is. And it's, and I think it's the same for the contractor side, and I think same the owner side. Many people haven't actually even read the construction contract, and when it does come up is when it does start to go to court, and when things do start to go bad. That's when people really start to become all lawyers, and like, oh, but in the contract it says this, but then you find a contradictory clause that says this, and then that's when you realize how bad the actual contract is that you signed up to. So yes, it can. We do try to identify those inconsistencies early on, upfront, but also more importantly, project managers, engineers. I mean, I don't know if you ever tried to read a contract, and I'm not a lawyer in any way. It puts me to sleep. It's the most difficult document to read in the world, and this is another reason why some people may even try to read it but not understand it. So what we try to do in TruBuild is put a human layer on it. I know lawyers are humans and they're lovely people, but we try to make it in a way that we try to provide the information to the project delivery team so that they're able to get out from the contract what they need to know by speaking to it, interacting with it, so they can actually understand what is in the scope, what is not in the scope, what is the deliverable, what isn't a deliverable, what is just a better understanding what they're committed to. And I think my hypothesis in that point is that this will address this will help make the contract a bit more accessible to teams. And so yes, 80% of people that we spoke said they haven't read it. 100% of the people don't even know where the contract is actually stored in their project team. They think, oh, is it in this folder or in that folder? And so we have problems, but as you mentioned, it's the most important piece of things because what we're contracted to deliver, and it's not understood by. And the big we are that because people think the contract is legal and lawyers, and that's fine. It is for them to draft, but we're all committed to deliver. We all have a part to play in that contract, and making that accessible is a big part of TruBuild and a big part of any teams. I'll put my hand up as well. Most projects I'd worked on in the past is my appreciation of the construction contract was only when the project went wrong. I was like, wow, did I commit to that? Wow, that's a bit crazy that we committed to that. Or so we need to make it more accessible, make it more human. And the inconsistencies are there because it's not the most collaboratively developed piece of document at the early stages, and there's lots of gaps. And when we look at how contracts are kind of formed at the moment, it's the legal team here, the engineering team here, the project management team here, the project controls team here. Everyone's got the producer their own individual input in a document, in a piece of paper, and then it all comes together to form this. And then this is sent to the legal firm to do their review. And then they do a page turn of the entire document to see if there's any inconsistencies. But it's humanly impossible to identify all the inconsistencies. It's an impossible task. And then AI comes in. So yeah, AI comes in. AI can help that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was just kind of looking at your website and stuff. I saw just the tagline, TruBuild is an AI-powered construction software designed to simplify your construction projects. I love that. And this is just my favorite question when people are building tech. Like, you got a really complex problem and you want to make a simple solution. That seems like maybe the crux of the problem. Do you agree? And how do you solve that with a complex problem, making a simple solution?
Sure. Yeah. It's actually funny with the simplify the construction projects. I think we went through, and this is for any, even yourself, if you're looking to do your own startup in the future, we go through so many different narratives and try to find the narrative that lands and try to find the narrative that works. So we initially went through accelerating construction decision making through simplifying the project data. We went through with so many different ways that we can try to communicate to the end user what we're trying to do, and we landed on the simplifying one. And how we tried to go about it is we overcomplicate things on construction projects. We think every single project is unique. It's the first time it's ever been done, but a large majority of it is the same as the last project because physics is physics. So physics is physics, gravity is gravity, and all of these things. So I think we overcomplicate things in construction, and we try to think everything is unique and bespoke for that specific project, even though there are unique factors because it might be a different project team, it might be a different owner or different kind of stakeholders, but fundamentally we are still doing a construction project. And so with my experience that I've accumulated by working in different kind of organizations in different countries, whenever I went from the Middle East to America, and then in America said, no, this is unique to our problem. This is how we deliver here. I was like, well, this is exactly how they do it in Dubai, by the way. But they don't call it phase, they call it stage. But it's still the same thing. And so terminology in some cases might be different, but it's still the same meaning. So we try to provide a standardized approach and provide some kind of standardization to the complexity so that it's somewhat applicable, shall I say. It doesn't need to be as fragmented, shall we say, because the fragmentation comes when we think it's going to be different every single time. So we create a brand new process and a brand new workflow and a brand new thing every single time. But and that stops us from using things in the past. But it doesn't need to be as complex as people make it out to be. And I actually promote more and more people to go and work in other countries and other teams so that they can see the similarities between construction projects, not the differences. And then they realize, oh, we're actually all the same. We all have the same problem. We all have the same challenges. On the Excel column, I don't, even though you have used white colors and these guys use yellow columns, it's still under the tracking the same bit of information.
True.
So yeah.
Yeah, so talk about the AI portion of that tagline. We talked about simplifying it. What is your guys' approach to utilizing AI, and is it a complicated subject in terms of, like, I don't know, security, how it gets implemented, how you make it smart for construction? Is it unique in construction? Because obviously a lot of us have used the chatbots and they're impressive. But is it that simple, like put an LLM together and load the contract up and start giving it operations to do, or is it unique?
I'd say It's nice for people to experiment by doing what you mentioned there. It's definitely to get a familiarization of how it works. So our approach, I'd say, is probably twofold. One is enhancement. And by enhancement, I mean the standard LLMs out there, whether it's a ChatGPT or Gemini or just any kind of ones. They provide a generalized response and a generalized output. So what we try to do from the enhancement perspective is actually giving our LLM a personality. So you are a product manager, you speak like this, you think about budget and schedule and scope. And so we have to give the LLM a personality. And by doing that, it really helps refine the response that the users get when they're speaking with our AI, should we say. The enhancement also, you mentioned security. People, especially say, for example, in Saudi, organizations are not allowed to use ChatGPT or Gemini because any data that's uploaded there in some cases may leak out into the big bad world. So providing a level of data security and encryption and assurance to the users that any data that they upload doesn't get leaked and doesn't get put back into the training model is a key part of that trust aspect. Another area that we enhance, besides say the personality and data security, is not everyone knows how to use AI and to make it work for them. So this kind of leads me to the second stage, which is the well as enhancement is accessibility. So with the accessibility, what we try to do is, I truly believe in AI benefiting and really making people's lives better when it comes to construction delivery, but they need to focus. People, such professionals, need to focus on what they know best, and that is delivering construction projects. What I want us to focus on is making the AI accessible and fit for purpose for the specific user case that they want to use it for. So without them having to know about specific data security, personalities, prompt engineering, which LLM is good for which type of data, because different LLMs are good for design. Another LLM is good for big context, which has larger context windows so they can digest gigabytes of data. So I really want people to just use the platform and to have trust in the back-end work that's been done in order to provide the best AI fit for what they needed to do from a construction purposes.
It sounds like TruBuild to me. I haven't used it yet. I can't wait to try it at some point. But it sounds like probably pretty quickly once you start using it, you're already seeing the value. But I think especially in our industry, getting people to try it might be part of the hardship. Can you talk about the resistance to even like, no, I don't want to load my data into that thing or whatever?
Sure. So initial hurdles, initial challenges that we've had is data security. So people, in many cases, some projects have to sign NDAs with people that work on that project. So how do you make people comfortable with uploading it to a platform that they don't know? So we've had to spend quite a lot of time in communicating our data security approach to people, whether that's on the website or for the early adopters, having that one-to-one session with them to talk them through how the data is safe and the fact that we don't even open their data or anything. It's they upload it, they use it, they can delete it. It's completely contained within the environment that they create. So that was definitely one of the resistance, and we're doing the best we can to address that. The other bit of resistance is, of course, you've seen people in construction projects, they don't have the time of day. They're not as experimentative as the consumer-based applications or consumer-based softwares. So it's showing or proving to them how it's going to add benefit to their day-to-day. And an example of that, for example, we released a tender evaluation module, which allows people to upload an RFP and upload the tender proposal from the contractor, and we do the quick scoring of it quickly. And the example I'd use with the user in this case was, we're pretty sure you want to go back home to your family tonight, but yeah, you've got to review this tender proposal from this contractor in the next 48 hours. But why don't you just let this platform do it, and then the platform can provide you with a justification as to why it's provided a scoring for this specific area. And then if you agree with the justification, you agree on the score, then you've got your time back to yourself and you can go home to your family. So we have to communicate the value to them in order to justify why they should try it. And that's thing. So data security, trying to get people in. The we did have some initial challenges in the early days with people saying, "Is it going to take my job? Is it going to take? Is it going to?" That argument. And my personal stance in this is, and I mean, and I don't know how you want to edit this bit, but is lots of work has been created by technology in terms of, I mean, project controls is a good example. Project control as a discipline didn't exist 10 years ago, but now we have Power BI experts and Tableau experts that are based on the project team in order to produce these dashboards. And so software and the technology has created new jobs that didn't exist 10 years ago. And other jobs have had to disappear. So I think, I don't necessarily see AI and technology taking away jobs, but it will create new jobs and it will create new ways in delivery. And this is how we can't fight some things. We just have to adapt and move on and see how we can retrain, repurpose, remove. And the industry's big enough. There's always going to be new types of jobs being created that may not have existed in the past. So it's it's a difficult topic. Is it going to take away jobs? Because I can't deny it. It does save you time.
But I always think about, like, I'm old enough to remember, obviously the calculator was created before I was born, but I'm old enough to remember when starting out in math class, I was taught how to actually do math equations without a calculator. And I remember that conversation coming up back then too a lot. Like, do we need mathematicians anymore? We have a calculator that can do it. Well, like, to be honest, we just all had to learn how to use the calculator. And then did we stop doing math problems? No, we did more complicated math problems. And another part of the resistance was always like, it's not always right. Like, it doesn't understand every, and that might be said for AI too, for sure. Like, it doesn't always give you the perfect answer. That's why we need humans to interpret it and think of it as a tool. And yeah, I agree with you. I think tech is creating jobs if you're creative enough to see, how do I use this tool? How do I make my job easier? Or even how does it make me more valuable to the client or my boss, So I totally agree with you.
You answered it much nicer, much cleaner than me. But yeah.
No, you inspired my answer as well. But yeah, I was just curious if you want to talk for a second. I almost took a job to come to Dubai as well about 10 years ago. And it just seems like the kind of place where construction is really exciting. I've never visited. Can you talk about what's going on there? Because it feels like it's in the news a lot. Like, just if you want to see exciting construction projects, go to Saudi Arabia or somewhere like that. What is it like to be out there working on construction?
Sure. So Saudi, I think, as I mentioned before, like, Saudi is building the equivalent of 3 Belgiums at the moment at this exact point in time. And it's something like 70,000 square kilometers of construction is happening in Saudi, which is an insane amount of construction projects. It's exciting for anyone in the construction industry. It's a really exciting place to be. And it's not your atypical, high-rise building, standard toilets at the same floor, same location, every single floor, because that's the cheapest way to build it, the most efficient. It's not just the standard thing. So there's lots of creative designs out there, pushing the boundaries. I think in Dubai as well, they just opened up the biggest cantilever structure on the project. The bus has like a humongous gravity-defying project that just has opened up in Dubai, and same in Saudi. It's a lot of ambitious projects. They're not your standard uniform square block type project. So it really pushes innovation and pushes engineering to the max. The time frame for lots of these projects is insanely quick, which as I meant to touch on before, it either drives innovation or it can either drive some projects to commit to unattainable deadlines, and which might not be so good for them if things don't go too well. But they're pushing the boundaries. They're really pushing the boundaries out here, for sure.
Do you think part of that is, are they able to be more creative, innovative, and push bigger, cooler construction projects just because they have the money? or is there something cultural there that helps feed that creativity, do you think?
And there's another point to that as well, I'd add, which one is Saudi now more than say Dubai. It's very much a greenfield site. So there's lots of construction to be done. It's whereas say in the UK or US or parts of Europe, there's lots of refurbishment and things that have to kind of be made within existing built up areas. Whereas here is you have a blank slate. What do you want to do? So the architecture or the design isn't limited to a specific. There's a lot less constraints, shall we say? And I think that drives creativity. The budget wise, I think Saudi now more than say Dubai. I think they've got an extremely large, something like $1 trillion of construction planned to take place over the next 10 years, which I think is the largest capital projects globally. Around I think like a 10% of global construction spend is happening here in Saudi. So they're definitely putting the money behind it. Culturally, I don't want to get myself in trouble. But there is a healthy competitiveness here, not just with the Saudi. Dubai's got Burj Khalifa, which is around 850 meters high. Then Saudi would say, I want to build the tallest building, which is 851 meters high or 900 meters high. And then Qatar might say, no, I want to build the biggest building. And so there is a healthy competition between the countries in the GCC, but also a competition between here and say Europe and the States and even China in some regard. So culturally, there's quite a competitive culture in amongst themselves, in amongst the region or the regional countries here. And that I remember working on a project before where when I was in Qatar and there was a new project forming and it was, we want you to do this. It just needs to be better than Dubai's one.
No, it sounds like a great quality to have. I agree. Like the competition can be toxic, but it also, I think, drives innovation. I think it's healthy, like you said. Thanks for coming on, Bisrat. Check out TruBuild, everybody, and go look up Bisrat on LinkedIn. Pretty easy to find, but do you want to plug anything?
No, I think it's okay. Yeah, visit TruBuild.io. We're on LinkedIn. We appreciate any support or any collaboration with anyone in the industry. Our mission is to make construction better. Moving any business or profit aside, keen to collaborate with anyone that has the same mission.
Appreciate you.